Hi, this is Tera from Mr. Bones. I'm here at the Funhouse at Mr. Smalls, and we're talking to Torrey Shineman about her writing, performing, and the storytelling and poetry scene right here in Pittsburgh. Thanks for hanging out with us, Torrey.
Great, thanks for having me.
So first of all, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So yeah, my name's Torrey. I've been here in Pittsburgh for about 5 years, and I am a storyteller and slam poet.
Fantastic. Can you tell us a little bit about your writing preference, your styles, your methods?
Yeah, I mean, I write a lot of different types of things. I think my background was mostly in poetry, but I've, in the last few years, branched out into a lot of different types of genres. But I don't think that there's, I think my work is pretty diverse. I go in and out of a lot of different types of styles. So sometimes I'll have a lot of rhyme or a lot of rhythm. Sometimes I work with wordplay. I do a lot of stuff with metaphor. Yeah, I really just like kind of crossing different genres.
If someone said, I want to write just like Torrey Shineman, what approach would you suggest that they take?
I mean, I think everybody has their own writing style, right? So to try to write like somebody else is the wrong direction. But finding ideas for new topics, for me what really works is a lot of my writing just comes from stream of consciousness, just kind of forcing myself to fill pages and pages, and I'll go back and read through them and find just these little gems and nuggets that really resonate for me. I feel like just not being afraid to put ink on the page, not being intimidated by a blank page.
And half of that is also the performing as well, correct?
Yeah, I mean, understanding a poem is performing it, right? Like, I live edit on stage often. You know, you read off the response of the audience, and sometimes there's a line I didn't even know was funny, but everybody laughs, or a line I thought was really funny, but you don't get a reaction. So it's, you know, by workshopping a piece over and over for a live audience, that's when it really starts to get fine-tuned.
Now, I have a little story for you. I'm not sure if you remember this, but it was a few years ago. It was Lawrenceville, 2 a.m. We were in a mutual friend's house. Barely anyone was awake. We were hanging out in the kitchen, and it was just you, myself, and my husband. And you introduced yourself, and you'd said, what you did. And I had kind of looked at you funny, and you said, may I perform for you? And you did. And I really wasn't sure what to expect, 2 o'clock in the morning, you know, after a long night. I have to say that my personal opinion of your performance was I had to pick my jaw up off the floor. Magnetic, energetic, hypnotizing. And that's my personal opinion on your performance. How would you actually describe yourself performing?
I love performing in diverse settings, right? Like, you know, at a venue where you have an audience is sort of a classic setting, and that's awesome. But yeah, like in kitchens, at house parties, kind of different events. I love spontaneous moments like that. But for me, one of my favorite things is just performing live, is working with the dynamic of an audience and delivering lines to people. You know, so sometimes, often just somebody I don't know in the audience, you pick a line and you shoot it right at them, and their reaction, right, their facial expression and the way they react, it gives me energy and it feeds back into my performance.
That is a very important part, and I can tell you that I'm sure people walk away with that instilled in them when they see you perform. Speaking of performing, where has your performance taken you? Where have you gone as far as like Moth or Poetry Slam?
Yeah, I've done a lot of different types of events. So my background was first in poetry, and I've competed at the National Poetry Slam 3 times. So I represented, the first time was representing Jersey City. I went back the next year representing Chicago, and then the year after representing Pittsburgh. I've also done the Women of the World Poetry Slam and then the Individual World Poetry Slam, which are both incredible. Those are individual instead of team-based. And one of my favorite events was I performed at the Glastonbury Slam in the UK, and I won that competition, which got me invited back to perform at the festival. And as part of that, I got to compete in the UK Slam Finals, which was at the Royal Albert Hall in London, and sort of a side room at the Royal Albert Hall. And that was a really awesome competition. It was really fun.
If you could state what your outlook on life is, and how does that translate into your poetry and your performing?
So I tend to be sort of incessantly optimistic. I'm a very positive person. Sometimes I get down, but I tend to be very optimistic about a lot of things, and I try to I guess I hope that my work inspires people. So I think a classic, something I'll do a lot is I'll take a personal moment or a personal story where I learned something or I grew or I realized something, and I'll kind of make myself vulnerable and then try to extrapolate and kind of make some bigger statement about society. So I'm constantly sort of challenging myself to be more honest, and at the same time hoping that that forces people to be more honest with themselves, right, in a way that makes things better.
Tell us how honesty in poetry and your storytelling affects your relationships with people. I know sometimes it's tough because you have to probably hide some emotions for fear of losing that optimistic view. What do you think about that?
Sorry, could you say the question again? That was a really
Sure.
cool question.
How does the element of truthfulness affect your relationships in your poetry?
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I feel like for me, some of my favorite lines are the ones I'm the most afraid to say at first. Like sometimes when I'm writing, I'll write a line and then I'll erase it, and I'll be like, no, and I'll write it 3 or 4 times before I actually let it stay on the page. So it's the things, for me, just challenging myself. I mean, it can also limit, there's certain things that you don't want to put in public domains, or writing poems about people in your life or about experiences can be complicated, but I feel like for me it helps me know myself better. Right, like being able to put something in words, it helps me process it in my own way.
Fantastic. And you've been around the Pittsburgh scene for a while, so you've accumulated some relationships with other performers in the area. If you could take anything from the scene or put anything in the scene, what would you do with that?
I feel like, Pittsburgh has so many cool things about the art scene here. So I actually moved here from New York City, and I was terrified to leave New York because I really loved it there. But I found that the city has actually forced me to open up more as an artist, right? Not, if you can't do one thing every day, you're sort of forced to branch out. Like I'd never done storytelling before I came here, and I love it, right? It's now one of my favorite things to create. So one thing I really love about Pittsburgh is that there's so many mashup kind of events where you have poets and storytellers and comics and improv troupes and musicians all sort of performing together in different collaborations. So I think that's something we do really well, and I would love to see even more of that and more opportunities for that. I don't know if I would take away anything. I feel like you just keep building art, right? Keep giving new opportunities. I think having writing workshops, like opportunities for new artists to kind of grow and emerge and share their work would be great as well.
Fantastic. Well, you are definitely a valuable resource to the Pittsburgh arts and performing scene, and we're very happy that you could sit down and talk with us.